Can I go live to Twitter then?
Yeah, go live to Twitter.
Well, that's what I'm going to do.
Because we're now live on Facebook.
Hey-o.
Yeah, we're live.
Bax. I can't wait, Bax. It's funny. Well, I can.
Great guy. Great guy.
We should tag him. He's got on Facebook. I can put him on there.
We'll go ahead then.
Let me get there.
You might be able to get him to phone in.
That's something we are. I'm still trying to work that out. Yeah, if we can have some people call in at some point.
I'm sure he's not.
Where is the?
So hello out there in Facebook world. We're live with another episode of Fumblegate.
How do I get this?
My throat's terrible today.
Sounds okay.
Cold the last few days. This is the best I've sounded actually. So I'm Jason, Officer Adam Kieft, and then special guest today is Middle Tennessee State assistant coach Mike Polly. You've got like 6 different titles, don't you?
I've got a few, yeah.
Yeah, like what, tackles, tight ends?
Technically I'm tackles and tight ends coach, and then I'm special teams coordinator. And then they gave me the run game coordinator so that when we don't run the ball well, they got somebody to blame.
So you were an offensive lineman anyway back in the day, so it kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah, that's right. No, really, it's a good deal. It's always the more titles you can have and stuff like that. It's always great, for your career and also to kind of help give you a boost, in terms of, I've been there for a while. So, it gives me a lot of confidence in being there and stuff like that too. So
we're going to talk to Mike in depth here about, the coaching ranks and whatnot. And by the way, the connection to him is that the officer and I went to high school with this guy. Mike and I graduated the same year from high school. So there's your connection there. So we'll get to talking to him about that. We have a ton of bowl games to pick, like 20 or 21 bowl games to pick.
Too many.
Something like that this week.
Easy on the too many.
No,
you already had
that's how Maction gets in, man.
Adam, that's when you were having your little emergency. So I didn't. Who did you pick in the Middle Tennessee bowl game? I honestly don't know.
I think I went with you guys because we were.
Well, Jason didn't.
Oh,
yeah, that's unbelievable.
No, you picked Arkansas State.
Yeah.
You did.
Was I right or no?
No, that's probably why I have the lead right now.
That makes a difference.
Yeah, the officer does have the lead in our standings right now. He's got a 2-game lead on Kieft and 3 on me. I'm not so good at this right now.
The officer knows best.
Yeah, thank you.
So, yeah.
I picked perfect on the conference championship games too.
And you picked you picked Middle Tennessee solely because of him.
Why wouldn't I?
Can you name one player on their roster?
I can't think of a better reason not to go with that team.
I can name 2 coaches. Mike Polly and Jeff Beckles.
But you can't name one player on their team, can you?
Sure can't. I'd have a hard time naming more than 3 on Central Michigan's roster.
Oh, we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
We're going to get into that. We're going to get into that. That was fun. By the way, folks, the new banner down at the bottom. We had that made up, and that just arrived this past week. So
don't forget, you can add your business to that banner if you'd like.
Right? Yeah. Fumblegate Podcast gmail.com. You can email us out there. All right. So we all set here, gentlemen.
I'm getting logged in.
I'm tagging Coach Mike Polly.
Oh yeah.
On the Twitter of what is it MTSU
at Coach Mike Polly, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
MTSU
MT_FB.
Okay.
If you want to do the football.
I'm getting there. FB video? No, where?
No, just MT_FB.
Oh, just MT.
Yeah. Polly, help him out.
I'm getting there. We go. We got it.
Got it.
All right.
We're tweetered.
We're tweetered.
We're tweeted. And
we're there you go. I see it.
Hey,
now.
We got 2 on.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Say it.
Well, I'm one of them.
Midday.
I'm one of them too. I guess we're watching ourselves.
Midday
Fumblegate.
Midday Fumblegate. Yeah.
Watching ourselves on Fumblegate.
That's okay.
They can watch it later.
That's right. Yeah, because and I haven't mentioned this until now, and I feel stupid for doing it. Every one of these videos, I've created a YouTube channel for Fumblegate, so you can go back and watch the previous episodes we've done here on Facebook Live on YouTube as well. Just search Fumblegate on there. So with that, let's go ahead and get going with this here.
Oh, now we're up to 3.
I think it's my mom.
Yeah, that's all right.
Hi, Mom.
We'll get some of the Murfreesboro audience in here as we go along as well. All right. Welcome to the Fumblegate podcast, episode 21. Are we on?
21.
Yeah.
XXI.
Yeah, we're rolling right along here on the deal here. The last episode of 2017. We got a special guest for you. You recall last week, Officers 1 for 1, cracking the beer. Keith, hashtag beer opening idiot over there. He hasn't done
I went ahead of time.
ahead of time, yeah.
I jumped again.
So, yeah, you remember last time we had a Kentucky football signee, Quentin Wilson, on talking about the ins and outs of recruiting from the player side. So we thought it would be a cool idea. Let's get it from the coach's side. So joining us here today is Middle Tennessee State assistant coach Mike Polly, and you've got like 45 different titles down there as well. You've got
I've got a few.
Run through them all. Everything that you're in charge of.
All right, so I'm tackles and tight ends coach, and then special teams coordinator and run game coordinator. So usually those titles are just who they want to blame when things don't go well. But no, it's great. I love doing all of it. The special teams is something I've done for a while now. That I wasn't really involved in when I was playing, other than being on PAT field goal. But it's been really fun working with those guys. And as everybody knows, you guys know, kickers and specialists, they're a different breed. But for me, they've been great to work with, and it's been a lot of fun. So
we will have the Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the Week a little bit later on.
Are things going to get awkward?
Yeah, it
depends on how well his kickers do. We haven't featured him yet, so they might.
He hasn't won any awards from us.
He hasn't yet.
Yeah. I really think our punter should have won an award in the bowl game. We had two penalties. Where our punter did a great job of being roughed. One early in the game that led to our first touchdown, and he appeared as if he would have to be carted off the field. One later in the game where it was only running into the kicker, and if he could have somehow made it a roughing, he would have ended the game without them getting the ball back and sealed the victory. So we were a little disappointed about that.
Doesn't that come from your coaching?
It does. That's what we I don't really focus on the kicking and punting as much. The flopping.
The Hollywood.
I didn't know you were a drama major in college. So we got a lot to get to here with Mike, and obviously you've been in the coaching game for quite a long time, and actually at such a young age you've been at the D1 level for quite a while now. Going back to coming out of the college days, you played your college ball at Georgetown College.
Yep.
What made you decide you wanted to be a coach?
Really, it's it's really something I've kind of always wanted to do. When I was a kid, I feel like when people ask me, of course, like every kid, the number one thing I ever wanted to do was to play in the NFL. And then there comes a time in your life where if you're talented as I was, the realization starts to set in that you're probably not an NFL player. When you're a 6'1", 275-pound offensive lineman, like there's only so many of them playing in the NFL, and they're pretty special. So, but I always knew that I wanted to play as long as they'd let me play, and then I knew I wanted to coach. That was kind of always my thing. And the only other dream I've really had is wanting to be a professional wrestler. That really hasn't worked out either.
Do you have a name picked out?
Yeah, well, I don't really have a name, but I do have a finishing move. It's called the Polygon.
Perfect.
But
you got to come up with a name, though.
Yeah, I know. I've kind of went back and forth, So I really don't know. I think I would need some creative work.
Okay.
In terms of
I have one.
So, what you got?
Hefty Decker.
Decker.
Yeah, that was the one that was given to me by some high school friends.
Yeah.
Did you run this by
your fiancé?
The only problem with that sounds like a jobber. Man, I don't know that Hefty Decker could carry.
I just think I'm the guy that shows up at the end and usually gets beat up for a distraction.
Yeah,
that would be what I would do.
Did you clear that with your fiance?
Yeah, no, not yet. I think she, when I do turn on Raw every once in a while, she's like, "What is this?" She usually makes me change it. And then I'm big on in Twitter. I use Twitter a lot in recruiting and stuff, and I'm known for tweeting wrestling things. The little action shots or whatever of different wrestling things when good stuff happens and. She's oftentimes like, "What are you doing? Who is this guy?" I'm like, "That's Diamond Dallas Page. What do you mean? Who is this
DDP, of course. So. Watch out for the diamond cutter."
Mike's on the Twitter at Coach Mike Polly. So if you have any wrestling stuff you want to tweet there, that's a good way to interact.
Football or wrestling, multi-talented.
Right. He does everything. How much nowadays for you is social media a part of the recruiting aspect of trying to get kids to come to you? I'd imagine it's probably
It's huge.
Pretty big.
It really is, and Facebook, not so much anymore, because the kids aren't using Facebook.
The old people like us.
Yeah, the old people like us use Facebook,
Thanks to everyone watching on Facebook Live, by the way.
So, but Twitter is huge. You know what I mean? It's a whole nother way to to find kids, and really just everything. The way the internet works now with Huddle. I don't know if you guys know what Huddle is, but the way the recruits put their film up. And being able to, even when I just started as a GA, if you heard about a kid or found a kid or something like that, it was like, well, let's find his tape. And everything at that point was on DVD. We had kind of moved past VHS and it was all on DVD. From DVD, it went to YouTube, and now from YouTube, it's gone to Huddle. And so you find out about a kid, you watch his Huddle, or somebody sends it to you, you hear his name, you Google him, you watch him. You like them, and immediately you don't have to have their phone number. You don't have to have their address. You really don't even have to have much high school coach information. You find the kid on Twitter. As soon as you follow them, they obviously know that you're a college coach. They usually follow you back, and immediately you can strike up a conversation, through instant messaging and stuff like that on Twitter. So it's huge. And then, of course, from that point, you have to get into getting the kid's information and getting to know his family and stuff like that. But it's a great way to find guys and kind of really broadens the your scope of what you're able to find pretty quickly.
There's probably guys that wouldn't have been found in our day,
no doubt,
that are now as a result of things like that.
No question. I don't think there's quite as many hidden gems as there used to be.
Right.
With the way that everything's
harder to hide.
That's right. So there are still some out there. We found a lot of guys that other people hadn't offered, but sometimes it's a misevaluation, or sometimes it's just a kid hasn't developed to what he's going to be. That's the hardest thing about it. I tell people all the time is, these guys are 17 to 18-year-old young men. You know what I mean? There's no telling what they're going to do, and there's no telling what they're going to become. You know, and so it's always fun to see how they develop as they're with you.
Justin Rudd sends out a hot boys.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad he's watching. This is for you, Rudd.
He's tuned in there. So, and so much as you can go along with the recruiting aspect, I don't want you to give away all your trade secrets down there for the Blue Raiders. If the three of us are being looked at by Middle Tennessee, how do you approach the recruiting process? Like, what can you get in so much as a generality, your pitch to a kid? Say, hey, we want you to come here.
Yeah, well, people ask me that a lot, when you're hanging out with people and they want to know, like, well, recruit me, tell me your pitch. And the first thing I always say is, you're not a used car salesman, so there's really no pitch to sell. It's not, I'm not trying to put you in this new sedan for, $399 a month with, out the door type deal. It's the most important thing in recruiting is the relationship, at least for me. I've been fortunate enough to sign some really good players, and it's always comes down to having the best relationship with that kid and his family, and really, sometimes it even extends beyond family to the people that are most important to that kid. And so each kid is different, and the people that are most important to that kid are different, and you've got to figure out what makes that kid tick, what are his goals, and how can I show them how coming to Middle Tennessee is going to help him achieve those goals. And then I think you also got to talk to the kids about how them coming also helps you achieve your goals. Because I think so often kids, all they ever hear is what you're going to do for them. Then it gets to the point where it's like, well, hey, there has to be some give and take here. Like, what am I going to do for you? And I think the real, that being real with the kids, so to speak, in terms of that, and actually showing them like, hey, we're going to do this, and this for you to help you reach your goals. And in turn, you're going to help us reach our goals because we're going to win Conference USA championship. We're going to go to bowl games. We're going to do great things here. And it's the whole relationship back and forth of how it works. So.
Keith, is that similar to the kind of thing to what you went through when you were being recruited out of high school?
Like he said, technology has changed so much. Back in the day, it was literally make up a VHS tape and you mailed it to every school you could mail it to.
Kids Google VHS.
Yeah, go find out what VHS is. But, the relationship part is similar because a lot of the things and a lot of the reason I chose where I chose to go to Central Michigan was the relationship that they built with not only me but also with my family. I had some schools that didn't even spend the time to research my background, and it was pretty evident when I would go on visits there that, they didn't know that my parents had been divorced and that my mom was a single mom and so on. So it was interesting to tell which schools did their research and which ones wanted to develop a relationship with me as a person. And I think that says a lot to Coach really doing the right thing, because to me, that's what meant so much to me was that Central Michigan was where I felt most comfortable, where my family felt most comfortable. And it's something that, like he said, these are kids, and you have to sell why you're a good fit for them and what you want to accomplish with them. And it really makes a difference if you can sit down with a kid and sell him on, this is what we're trying to do and this is how you fit into that. And it's a lot because, you see the signing days that happened this past week. All these kids, I don't think they really understand what they're in for. They were built up, and there's no such thing as a can't miss prospect anymore, because we've seen so many number one recruits coming out of high school that get into a bad fit. They pick a school because they think it's, going to give them the best opportunity. Well, every kid still is developing. So just because he's a monster in high school doesn't mean that's going to translate to college. And that's why you see some kids that are, not as highly touted become monster prospects, and kids that are really highly touted become, lost in the shuffle, and you don't hear about them again. Like, very rarely does it happen where you come into college and you maintain that same level throughout your entire career and become a can't miss NFL prospect in the future. So, it's one of those things that it's exciting to see a coach like Coach Polley that really wants to invest in the kid as a person and develop them as a person, more so just hyping them up and telling them, oh yeah, you're going to do great things and your future's in the NFL and so on. So it's really, really refreshing to hear that from an actual college coach.
Well, to me, that's the difference in, a lot of the times I get asked the question about, do you want to coach in the NFL and stuff like that? And, I would be lying if I said there's not part of me that wants to get to the highest point of coaching, to be a head coach of, an NFL play, a team one day organization.
Well, along with your dream of playing in the NFL.
Right. Yeah. And
at least being part of it in some way.
That's right. And part of you wants that, but then there's another part of me that loves the recruiting aspect. And it's not it's obviously not the driving down the road for 6 hours to see a prospect for 30 minutes and then getting back in the car and driving another whatever and getting stuck in snowstorms and things like that. I've got great stories about that. But to me, it's the relationship that you build with a kid and then getting to see it all the way through. So for me, for example, I've been this was my 5th season, at Middle Tennessee. So this is this year's class. For us to win a bowl game and stuff was really, really special for me, because some of these kids that were seniors this year were part of the first guys that I signed when I got there.
Oh.
And to see these guys come all the way through and be successful. There's one of our guys, he actually had the scoop score in the bowl game for the touchdown, one of our linebackers, and he was kind of the first guy I signed when I got to Middle Tennessee. And he had a lot of other good stuff, had some stuff that, Power 5 offers at the end, and to the relationship that I built with him. And then, after a game, whether win, lose, or draw after a game, and I get to see his parents, who I got to know through the recruiting process, and talk to them and, give his mama a hug coming off the field or whatever. That's the kind of stuff that's really, great for me, that I don't know that you get that kind of relationship at the next level. So,
where is your recruiting area? Where do you recruit?
So right now I have East Tennessee, which kind of includes Knoxville and everything that way. I have North Alabama, which I've had for a really long time now. And then I have kind of the suburbs of Atlanta, which are Gwinnett County and Cobb County, which are huge areas for
a lot of athletes.
Yeah, a lot of athletes.
That's a deep pipeline for talent.
Yes,
absolutely.
And Atlanta's been really good to us. A lot of people don't realize Atlanta's less than 3 hours from our campus. So, it's really, really easy to get to, and, kind of we're one of the closer, group of 5 schools, other than Georgia State, of course, which is in Atlanta. There's really nobody else that's as close to Atlanta as we are.
So you had mentioned the NFL. Is what's your goal in coaching? If you had to put you on the spot and you could get as far as you want to get, where would that be?
Well, I definitely
not necessarily the location, but what position would you like?
I want to be a head coach for sure. That's kind of my ultimate goal, is to one day be a head coach. And a lot of people ask me about like being an offensive coordinator and stuff like that. And I would love to call plays. Everybody does, but part of calling plays usually involves not being an offensive line guy. There's not many offensive line guys that are actually calling the plays and things like that. So
I don't get to call the plays. But I deal with fat guys. I don't call plays.
Yeah, and there are some out there. And, I spent a few years actually, when I first got hired back to Middle Tennessee, I coached the running backs for 3 years, which was really fun, and it was great, and I coached some great kids and had a great time. But the one thing that I realized during those 3 years was how much I love coaching offensive line. And, I would rather be the guy, I think, if I could write my own story, to be the guy that coached offensive line and then got a head coaching position somewhere, wherever that may be. And obviously, once I became a head coach, definitely to the highest level in college, the highest level of Division I, and maybe beyond. But the NFL, I don't know, because like I said, I really do enjoy the recruiting part of it and the developmental part of it. There's not as much development that goes on in the NFL. You know what I mean? Those guys are there for short stops and short period of times. I'm sure he knows, the average career in the NFL is really, really, really short. It's not
he knows.
Yeah, it's not
don't I know?
That's why
it's
he's
not
here.
the Brett Favre or the Emmitt Smith or the Peyton Manning. It's it's the guy that's there for like 6 months on the practice squad and then gets bumped up and then he's gone and and he has to move on. So.
Yeah, there's not like you said, there's not as much relationship, I don't think, in the NFL. There is to a point, and you'll have players that get along really well with their position coaches or their head coach or whatever. But there's a lot of moving parts, and you don't know. You're not guaranteed 4 or 5 years with those guys.
That's right.
You can get cut tomorrow, or you can sign a 3-year deal, and then you move on from there. So it's those guys are already developed, and it's nice to hear that building a relationship means something, because that's something you have the opportunity to do in college where you don't necessarily get that in the NFL.
Yeah.
Take us through the recruiting process again. I know you've told us off the air that you had a couple of pretty good stories about some kids that you've signed, especially even going back to your first signing class.
Right. Okay. So one of the better stories is probably the first guy that I ever signed. So I was a graduate assistant at Middle Tennessee, and I get hired at Murray State in Western Kentucky, an FCS school. And so it starts off with getting an interview, and this is 2009. We're at the New Orleans Bowl. We had just had a great year. We were trying to win 10 games. We were playing Southern Miss, and the guy that is our offensive coordinator now, Tony Franklin, was our offensive coordinator then. He had left, and he's come back since. But so we're standing at the bowl. We're in the hotel. We're going to have a team meal or something, and he comes up to me and says, "Hey, I got a job for you." And I'm like, "Oh God, what?" You know what I mean? Like, what do I have to do now? Like, do I have to go figure something out or whatever? And I'm like, "Okay, what you got?" He's like, "No, I got a job for you." And I'm like, "Yeah, what do you want me to do?" And he's like, "No, like, I'm going to get you a job. You're going to get hired." He's like, "One of my best friends, Chris Hatcher, who's now the head coach at Samford down in Alabama, just got the head job at Murray State, and he's going to hire you." And I was like, "Awesome. What position?" He's like, "Well, I don't know." he just looks at me like plain as day, and he's like, "But you're going to take it, and that's where you're going to go." And I'm like, "Okay, sounds good." So that's kind of the end of it. Don't really hear much about it anymore. And we finished the bowl game. We win. We beat Southern Miss. We go 10-3. Had a great year. And a couple weeks later, I get a call from Chris Hatcher, and he's like, he wants me to come up and interview. And I'm like, I thought I had the job. Not just yet. So me being young, I don't really know any better. Like, if you know Chris Hatcher, he's a great guy to work for. But he's like a not a super dressed up kind of guy. He's not really formal. He's from Georgia, and phenomenal guy to work for, but not a black tie kind of guy. I don't know what to do, so I wear a suit. So I show up to Murray, Kentucky in my suit to interview for a job that was not a full-time coaching position. Okay, it's kind of a way that you break in after being a GA a lot of times to get to where you want to go. And I show up in a suit, and they're all just looking at me like, "Who is this guy?" Right? So anyway, the guy that ended up being our offensive coordinator when I got to Middle Tennessee was the offensive coordinator at Murray at that time. And so I get in there, and they got me up on the board, and they're asking me questions. I felt like I was interviewing for the offensive coordinator position. Now they're asking me all these questions about stuff, and finally, it comes to a point where they ask me a question about power read versus an odd front. And I'm standing there, I'm drawing it on the board, and I get about halfway through drawing it, and I realize they've got me. But I don't want to tell them they've got me. Like, there's nobody to block the overhang. Okay?
Put on your poker face.
Yeah, so the story goes, which I really don't remember, is I got my back to them all, and I'm like, they're asking me questions about stretch and all this different stuff that we do, and I'm just rattling it off, just bam, 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 drawing it fast. And I get to this, and I just start drawing really, really slow. like the right tackle took like 2 minutes to draw, because I'm trying, in my mind, I'm trying to figure out, like, how am I going to make this work? And they said, I finally just turned around, and I was like, we don't have an answer for that. And, check out of it. So anyway, so they end up hiring me. Everything went well. So, I meet with the head coach. He sends me back home to Murfreesboro, tells he's going to call me, calls me while I'm on my way back, and he's like, "Hey, you got the job." And I'm like, "Awesome." He's like, "I'll call you tonight and let you know what we need to do." And the head coach that I was working for at the time is the same head coach now, Rick Stockstill, who's been great to me and everything. And he kind of knew the whole deal, and he was, trying to help me get the job, of course. And so I called Coach, and I'm like, "Hey, Coach, I got the job." He's like, "Oh, man, that's awesome." He's like, "Are they giving you a cell phone?" And I was like, "I don't think so." And so I had a Middle Tennessee cell phone. So he's like, "Hey, man, just keep that for as long as you need it, until you can get your own." And yada, yada, yada. So he was great about that. So I get the job. So Hatcher calls me back that night, and he's like, "Hey, he's like, don't even bother coming to Murray." He's like, "Just go to St. Louis and recruit." Mind you, I've never been on the road recruiting at all.
Yeah.
So he's like,
sitting in an office breaking
he's like,
down
"Go to St. Louis and recruit." And I'm like, "Okay, well, where do you want me to hit?" And he's like, "Wait." And if you know him, I'm going to do his voice here. So
go ahead.
He's like, "Wait, hell, I don't know where you need to go. I said, go to St. Louis and find us some ballers." And I'm like, "All right." So I'm like, "Okay, well, here I go." So I get in the car and I just take off, right? And I'm heading to St. Louis. Don't really know what schools I'm going to. I don't know what kids. I don't know who's where. I don't know where the schools are.
Do you have any Murray State gear to wear at this point so you can?
No, I have nothing. No, so literally have nothing. And there's actually another funny story with that. So after I'm gonna interject that. So after I finally do get to come back to Murray, there wasn't a whole. He had just gotten a head job. There wasn't a whole lot of gear. There was something about transition, and they had these little tiny they were sewn. They were threads, but they were attached. Yeah. So we would just put you would wear a sweater, and you just put this little patch on it, and we would wear those. And we'd go recruit. So then at least somebody would know, that's must be a college coach. We don't know who because we're not close. Little tiny but yeah. So I drive up there, and this is really before I still had a flip phone. So this is before you can pull out your phone and start Googling stuff while you're driving and figuring stuff out, which you probably shouldn't be doing, but is what I would be doing. And so I have to call one of the guys that still works at Murray now. He was a GA for us. And I'm like, dude, we got to figure out where I'm going. And he's like, doesn't know what to tell me or whatever or anything like that. And I'm like, where do I need to go? What do I need to look at? And he can't figure it out. So I call my girlfriend then, who's my fiance now. She doesn't know how to help me. And I end up calling my sister. And I have her start Googling stuff for me because she's at the house. And so I'm like, well, just Google the All-Star teams from St. Louis or whatever. And I'll just start going there. And I said, then once we find good players, just Google if they're already committed somewhere, somewhere above us or whatever.
So as you're going through this, I don't mean to interrupt you. Are you thinking to yourself, what have I got myself into?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm like, this is what in the world? Because I had been involved in recruiting as a GA, and it was very precise and very. Everybody had an area, knew exactly where they were going, which kids they were going to see, why they were going there. There wasn't a lot of wasted time, and I'm just like, what in the world's going on here? So anyway, I'm finding all this information. I do have a laptop with me. I find 5 schools that I'm going to go hit that very first day when I get there, at 2:00 in the afternoon. So I go hit those schools, and it's there's nothing. I mean, it's completely barren. You know what I mean? So I get back to my hotel room, and I stay at a Holiday Inn, which I tried to book. And it is in the absolute hood. It's an outdoor. It's got the outdoor entrance, not even the inside doors.
Were you in East St. Louis or
no? But I actually went to East St. Louis, and when I walked in during this trip, I walked in, and the lady at the front desk is like, "Honey, you must not be from around here." no, I'm not. But,
so stick out like a sore thumb. There.
But anyway, so that night I end up finding all this stuff on the internet and finding these, different kids that were on all-star teams. And because Rivals was big, but it wasn't huge yet. I don't think 247 was even around yet. And so I find a school to go to, and I go to Hazelwood East, which is a city school in St. Louis. And I find this kid, and he, he gives me his tape or whatever, and we watch it. And I'm like, this guy's unbelievable. This guy is the real deal. So I told the kid, I was like, look, I'm going to take this back. I'm going to show it to our head coach, and he's going to offer you. Okay. So I get, I finish that recruiting trip, and I head back to Murray. And I get back to Murray a couple nights later. It's probably 1:00 in the morning. And, it's a new staff. So all the staff is still at the office watching tape. And I come in with this one DVD, and I'm like, Coach, which I don't even really know the guy yet. I'm like, Coach Hatcher, this guy's really good. You know what I mean? And he's like, hey, let's look at it. And we pop this guy in, and he's like, we got to have that guy. This guy's unbelievable. And he's like, what's he got going on? The guy really had nothing going on in recruiting. Somehow he was being overlooked. They had a coaching change at the high school. When I went, I had to meet with a counselor and different people just to get to this kid. And kind of the way the story ends up going is we end up signing the guy. The guy ends up getting, as a senior, he gets invited to the combine, breaks a ton of Murray State records, has a great career, and I think he was a 5th-round draft pick by the Arizona Cardinals. So
that's awesome.
First guy ever signed, which was pretty cool. But so we get him on the official visit, right? And this is the first kid I've had on an official visit. And the only thing I know from working for Coach Stock at Middle was how important recruiting was. And Coach Stock is a phenomenal recruiter, and that's kind of how he made his way into being a head coach, was through recruiting.
Sure.
And so I knew how important. So I'm trying to be perfect at everything. You know what I mean? I'm basically walking with my arm around this guy, taking everywhere he needs to go.
Show him everything.
So on Saturday night, they have their exit meetings with Coach Hatcher. And there's a guy that's in there meeting with Coach Hatcher, and my guy is waiting to be next. And if you knew my guy, he's a very lively person, really funny dude. Okay, he played receiver and that kind of stuff. But he's a big personality. And so we're sitting there, and we're waiting for the other guy to come out and for my guy to go in, and he wants to go out with his host. Like, he's excited to be in Murray, Kentucky. Yeah. He's tired of waiting. So I'm sitting there, and I'm, like, nervous as a bedbug. Like, I got to make sure this guy's going to commit. If he doesn't, they're going to think I don't know how to recruit. And all of a sudden, he gets tired of waiting, and his host is there waiting to take him out. He goes over to our secretary's desk, which was close to the head coach's office, takes off a sticky note, writes, "I commit," signs his name, and while the head coach is meeting with somebody else, just slides it up under his door. And I'm like, what is this guy doing? You know what I mean? And he's like, "Coach, I'm going out." And I'm like, all right. Yeah, we're good. So, wow. That was how my first guy ever committed. So.
That's a good first impression.
That is. Yeah. It was pretty cool. Awesome. So, and then, like I said, he had a great career. And still, up until this past year, I think he was with the Buffalo Bills. He's been with a lot of different teams, but he was with the Bills. Not on a team right now, but I'm sure he'll be back on.
How much credit do you take for it?
Just a little. Just a little.
Yeah,
it was all about him being a great player.
It's coach speak. Come on.
Man. Oh, you discovered him.
I did.
Yeah, you got him.
Every once in a while, when he got a little too lively, I'd make sure he remembered.
I got you into this. I'll take you out of it.
Awesome.
Okay, so you talked about a little bit about the beginning of your coach career there, and you've done a great job breaking into Division I as a young guy. So say for our aspiring coaches out there, how do you go about getting into it?
Oh man, it's not the easiest thing to get into. It's a lot of people will tell you it's all about connections, and it really is about knowing people and having connections. But kind of playing at the level I had played at, and being the kind of player I wasn't the most talented guy in the world as a player. I feel like I always worked really hard. Like that was something that I did. So when I got done playing, or as I was getting close to being done playing, I started talking to all of my coaches at Georgetown about, hey, how can I get into coaching? And I had a couple guys that were GAs currently. One of them now is the defensive line coach at South Florida. Another one has been the safeties coach at Louisville and different places. And they kind of helped guide me along the way, hey, here's what you need to do. Here's how you can try to find a way in or whatever. And one thing that I did was I basically wrote a handwritten letter to every college coach in the country. You know what I mean? I just wrote them letters asking them, for a job, for anything, any way to get in the door. But really what ended up getting me in the door was we had a coach at Georgetown, a guy named Clyde McConaughey, who was an older guy who had kind of retired from being a high school coach at Scott County, had coached at Georgetown once before and was just kind of volunteering, but he was there all the time. And I always tell guys, be good to everybody, just because you should, but also you never really know who's going to be the guy that helps you. Because if you would have asked me before that who could help me, like Coach McConaughey, just because he was older and he wasn't really around all the time, probably would have been the last person I thought that would get me started in coaching. And the way it worked out was our head coach, Coach Stock, grew up in Georgetown. His dad was a coach at Georgetown. He was actually just inducted into the Georgetown Hall of Fame this past spring. And so when Coach Stock's dad was coaching, Coach McConaughey played for him. Mm-hmm. And there was a relationship there. And so Coach McConaughey comes up to me one day kind of towards the end of our season. He's like, "Polly, you trying to get into coaching?" I was like, "Yeah, definitely." He's like, "Well, hey, I know this guy, Rick Stockstill. He just got the head job at Middle Tennessee." So this was Coach Stock's first season. He's like, "I'll give him a call and see what I can do." And I'm like, all right. You know what I mean? Like thinking to myself, like, this isn't going to be how it works.
Yeah.
And one thing led to another. He called Coach Stock. Coach Stock called me and brought me down for an interview. Kind of the same type thing. Coach Stock is a jeans and boots kind of guy, and I showed up kind of all dressed up. he's like, "Dude, you don't." And I was like, I had just got done playing, so I was big, and like I'm in like all these sweaters and dressed up, and I just remember being like all sweaty because I was so nervous. And I just remember him looking at me like, "Dude, you're not a dress-up kind of guy. Like, next time you come down here, don't wear this," And then that was, so Coach Stock gave me that opportunity, and that's kind of how I got into it. But the way to get into it is you just got to work, man.
Yeah.
You got to every person that every opportunity, and when you do get a chance, you got to work your tail off and try to impress people to the point where I always try to tell young GAs now, if you really want to make it at some point, you have to position yourself, and you have to bite your tongue a lot as a GA, man. It's not, you're kind of at the bottom of the totem pole, and sometimes like you're out at practice and you're running the scout team, and it's not something you've done. It's something that maybe a coach did, and he's going to rip you, and you got to be like, you got to take it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to. But the whole key is that everybody that leaves that you worked for, in your mind, you've got to position yourself that when they leave, that there's no way they wouldn't try to hire you. That you've done a good enough job that if they were to go off and get a head job here or a coordinator job there, that they would be like, all right, he's at the top of my list as a young guy to come in and bring in and be part of my staff.
So now that you've been doing it for a while, and I know you've been at all kinds of different venues and everything, what stands out to you as some of the coolest places that you've been to?
Okay, so let's see. Well, for me, one of the coolest was, I think it was 2008. We played at Kentucky, and me being from Kentucky, that was pretty cool to play at UK. And we actually play Kentucky again next year, so that's gonna be really fun for me. That's gonna be one.
Is that week 2?
No, it's actually the week before they play Louisville.
So that's the end of the season.
Yeah,
so the SEC end of the season, non-conference crap.
I
hope you beat the crap out of
Me too. But
SEC
but
bums.
for me personally, that was really cool because a ton of my family came, friends and stuff that got to see us play. But probably the coolest, rowdiest place, LSU was pretty cool. LSU was pretty loud, pretty cool. We've been to Clemson, which is also really cool. But probably the coolest thing that I've seen, I think, was when I was at Murray, we played Florida State. And Florida State, it's not the biggest stadium, really pretty from the outside, kind of looks like a castle. But to see the whole Chief Osceola deal, to come out and that horse to raise up and to throw that burning, spear, I guess it is, into the middle of the field and all that, that was kind of like –
that sends a heck of a message.
Yeah, and then when you get up into the box and, we're getting hammered, you know what I mean? And the whole bowl – is just synchronized with
they're up for the game regardless of who they're playing.
At least for the beginning they were. So that was pretty cool, to see that and the hands waving and all that kind of stuff. So that's one of the, I would say Florida State, LSU, and Clemson are probably the three.
Really,
that's cool.
So what's the most memorable game you've had, or your favorite, or either or? What stands out as your?
Let's see. There's probably a couple. One of them would be this year beating Syracuse. That was a big win for us to go up there and to beat them. And there's kind of some backstory to it. Also our current defensive coordinator used to be the head coach at Syracuse, for a few years. So that was kind of one we all wanted to win for him because he's a great guy. And,
so do you claim now that you're better than Clemson?
That's what I was going to ask that. You rooting for Clemson to win it all now?
Yeah, for sure. We've kind of, we'd be the pseudo-national champions. So yeah,
you can get like a trophy for that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think
put it up in the office.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, that was a huge win. That was really cool to go to play in their place. That was big. 2 years ago, beating Missouri was really big. And that was at that point we were rolling. We were 6-2, and we ended up having some injuries later on in the year that kind of derailed our season to where we finished. I wouldn't say derailed, but we ended up finishing 8-4 and not quite what we thought we had a chance to be a 10-2 team, and but beating Missouri and scoring 51 on them,
wow.
They had a defensive end. It was a first-round draft pick that we were just terrified of. To be honest with you, to be able to game plan a way to kind of limit him from being able to do the things that he could do. Not necessarily saying that we stopped him in any way. We just kind of found ways around letting him, go off on us. So that was pretty cool, and then probably the other one would be, well, really two other ones. There, my first year at Middle Tennessee, this is probably the most memorable. My first year at Middle Tennessee, so my first year being a Division I coach, we start off the season, everything's going good. I was a running backs coach. The first play of the season, we run power with our starting running back for like 65-yard touchdown, and I'm like, easiest job. First play. Running backs.
T1's not so hard.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm the running backs coach. We just hit power the first play of the game, 65-yard touchdown. And I'm like, guys, this is easy. I'll be the head coach at Alabama before I'm 35. And then then life happened, and it kind of slowed down a little bit. And
that's like hitting a home run off of Nolan Ryan at your first career at bat.
It was unbelievable. And we get to the point where we're 3-4, and things aren't going great. And we get a bye week. We're coming home to play Marshall, and Marshall at that point was like 6-1 or 5-2, something. They were really good offensively, and we kind of got together as a staff. We had to kind of look at what we were doing in the off week and come up with a plan and try to figure it out. Marshall was obviously the favorite team. I think we played them on a Thursday night. It was like an ESPN game on a Thursday night, and it was just, we knew if we didn't win that game, the season could go bad and the whole thing could go downhill. You know what I mean? So kind of that realization hits you finally as a coach, like, this is not that easy. You know what I mean? And we go back and forth with Marshall, and we end up scoring a touchdown as time expires to beat them. And that's probably one of the most memorable for sure, where, it's kind of like your proudest moment, where we had 2 running backs rush for over 100 yards in that game. And, of course, that was the year I was coaching the running backs, and just
of course,
a lot of good stuff.
Let's mention that.
Yeah, so so for me, like, that was huge. And we had some injuries and stuff like that. And to beat them, at home, in that way,
right.
that was big. That's really memorable for me. So,
wow. So you start off like that as far as your first game, and then the first kid you recruit goes to the NFL. You might be on to something.
Yeah, I'm good at first, but the problem is it's all downhill from there.
Maintaining. How many kids have you coached in the NFL?
Oh, shoot. So, well, right now, just coaching, not necessarily recruiting. We have our starting right tackle from the 2016 season, so from not this past season, but last year, is just this year he got bumped up to being on the actual – he was on the practice squad with the Ravens. He was an undrafted free agent, and he was on the practice squad with the Ravens. And about halfway through the year, one of the Ravens scouts came to look at some of our other guys, and I was talking to him and said, "Hey, how's Marquise doing? Is he going to have a shot to get bumped up?" And they had some injuries and stuff, and he's like, "Man, he's doing a great job. He's versatile. He plays tackle. He plays guard, all this stuff." He's like, he might end up on the actual squad before it's all said and done. And like 2 weeks later, he got a chance to bump up and be on the actual squad. So that was huge, because he's a great kid and was really fun to coach. So there's him. There's the kid from Murray that that I recruited that's playing, and we've got quite a few other guys. It's to try to think of all of them. I'd be afraid I'd leave somebody out. So.
Too many to count?
Yeah, I don't know that it's too many to count. But,
we'll go with that.
Probably, and I didn't coach him directly, but probably our best one right now is Kevin Byard. He's a safety for the Titans. We had a chance to possibly make the Pro Bowl this year. I think he's still leading the NFL in interceptions. At one point, I know he was, but he was a safety for us, and I got to be around him for a few years and coach him on special teams and stuff. And he's a really special guy too. He's great. He's really really good.
Well, that's not far away then. Being in Nashville, that's pretty close to Murfreesboro.
Yeah,
down there in the state. Do you ever try and call him and say, "Hey, we've got a kid coming in. Can you stop by and talk to him?"
Well, that's I don't.
I know he's busy.
And I don't think that you can really. There's some recruiting rules in terms of bringing guys back and around all the time and stuff like that. But he does a great job of promoting Middle Tennessee. You know what I mean? He does a great job. I think he had a great time there, and obviously it's worked out for him well. He was the first pick of the 3rd round a couple seasons ago, and he's another guy that's just an example of continuing to develop and just working hard. I mean, he's a true professional. Even when he was playing for us, we knew like this guy, he's the real deal. He does everything right. He's focused all the time, and just a great guy to be around. It was a great example for our younger players too.
So you come off now the bowl win over Arkansas State. I know the officer's the only one here on the panel that picked your Blue Raiders to win.
Yeah, that's really disappointing.
I knew they were a well-coached team, so
again, you picked because of him, which I think kind of spawned the idea to have.
That was a pretty special win too. If we were talking about wins, to beat those guys, the way our season went this year, that was pretty special. So
that's awesome.
Well, we've got a bunch of other bowl games to pick now coming up this week, and we've got a lot of them to get through. And Coach Polly is going to chime in his thoughts on these. So we'll get into it right now. As the standings go, the officer has a 2-game lead over Kieft, and I'm 3 games out. So
I'm pretty sure I'm the only one with a that's above 500 as well.
We won't worry about that right now.
He's the only one that's bowl eligible.
And actually, real quickly here, before we actually get into that, there was another topic we wanted to bring up here. We'll get to the bowl picks in just a moment. We're seeing a lot of players coming into the bowl season skipping the bowl game, getting ready for the NFL draft. Keith, I know you really said you haven't had an issue with that.
Not at all.
Whatsoever. I'll give from the coach's perspective there. Coach, if a kid comes to you and says, gosh, I think I've got a good shot here. My draft stock looks pretty good. I'm thinking I might bypass the bowl game. Would you have an issue with that?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's a lot of guys. I think there's a few guys, and it makes it seem as if there's a lot of guys because of the attention that they're drawing.
Yeah.
I think there comes a time where everybody has to kind of do what's best for them. As a coach, you always hope that that your guys have a sense of obligation to always do what is best for the team. You know what I mean? That's kind of how you try to build the team, is that you are truly a brotherhood and that you would always do for one another before you would do for yourself. But there also comes a time, especially if a guy has had any type of injuries and the type of future that he may have, and to put that at risk for this game or that game. I don't think it's something that I would have done, but I've also never been in that position. I would have felt like I needed to be out there playing with the guys that have also suffered for me and I say suffered, played through pain and things like that, and worked all summer long and ran those 110s that nobody likes to run, and done all that. I would have wanted the guys that I were playing with to play as I would have expected myself to play. But I think at the end of the day, those guys have put a lot into that team, and it just comes down to their personal situation. I think everybody's different, and obviously they have the right to do so. It's not something that I love, but I think you also have to consider some of the stuff that these guys are risking, because the number of chances and shots that you do get at the NFL are so slim, and the margin of error is so small that one thing could keep you from getting there. And if you really felt like it's going to, then you have to consider what all that could entail, and whether or not I guess you want to sit out. But it's not something I love, but I guess I do understand it to some degree.
And you mentioned it quickly, but do you think being in a college locker room, how much do you think that plays into the other guys that would be out there playing? Do you think it affects them? Do you think they're upset about the decision, or do they understand the same thing for that kid, that he has an opportunity to do something special and he doesn't want to cost himself for the future? Do you think players would resent a player for that, or do you think that they kind of understand the situation as well?
I think for the most part the guys understand. I really do. I think there's probably some guys that would resent it, and I think it may also depend on the bowl that you're playing in and also the situation of the guy. I think if the guy that chose to sit out had injuries, and had been battling all year through, something trying to get healthy, I don't think the guys would resent that at all.
Yeah.
But I think if the guy were totally healthy and it was a season that you had where you won 9 games and maybe you could have won 10, and if you'd have won 10, you'd have been in the New Year's Six bowl, and now all of a sudden you're not quite in that bowl, and you're just like, oh, I'm just going to sit just because something could possibly happen.
Yeah.
I think there'd be a lot of guys on the team that are like, dude, like we've done this together the whole way through.
That's what I take issue with. I understand some of the injury situations. I really take issue with the healthy scratches. It's how can you? I don't know. They're wanting to protect their NFL investment, but at the same time, they're showing. At least it looks to me, and maybe it's not true, but I think it looks like you're not being a team player. You're not playing because you love the game, and I feel like those are the kind of guys, or that's at least what you would want at the next level. I would think,
right.
And I take a huge issue with it. I know. I feel like it's being more accepted. Like Florida State has 4 guys this year that are doing it and healthy, and it's just crazy to me. Like Jalen Smith tore his ACL and 2 years ago in the bowl game. But last year when Leonard Fournette and Christian McCaffrey did it, Marshall Faulk brought up a good point and said, you're playing against college opponents for one game that you might get hurt. How are you going to play 16 games in the NFL? It just, I don't know. I'm going to sit out and not bleed with my brothers in this bowl game just because I might get hurt or something might happen. I take a big issue with that, me personally.
Yeah, and we've talked about before, maybe not on the air. I don't have a problem with it, but that's just my personal.
And you're the only person in the room that's been at that,
right.
level too. So
I was never in a position to have to worry about my future. We didn't have a bowl game to play in either, so it would be twofold for me. But it's to me. With the money that's being thrown around the NFL now, and you have to consider these players are, you look at what NFL players do to invest in their bodies, at the end of the season, starters sit the last game of the season and so on if they made the playoffs because they don't want to get hurt going forward and so on. I think it's becoming a bigger issue. Like we talked about, Fournette and McCaffrey last year, and this year there's a dozen players at least that are not going to play in their bowl game because of it. I really think, you have to look out for your own best interest because, some of these kids have families already. Some of these kids have, parents that are in bad situations. They need to, they want to get them into a new house or whatever, take care of their family going forward. So it's hard for me to tell a kid, yeah, you shouldn't sit out the game. You should play the bowl game with that risk of getting hurt because it really can make a huge difference. I mean, guaranteed money first round to the third round is millions of dollars. And that's hard to convince a kid, you know what, playing this game, if you get hurt, you might cost yourself millions of dollars. At the end of the day, college players are commodities. You don't get paid for what you're doing, and now you have an opportunity to go get paid. It's hard for me, if I were in that position, it'd be hard for me to tell a kid, no, it's in your own best interest to play in that bowl game, because it's not. I mean, you're lying to the kid. If the kid's a guaranteed first-round draft pick and you tell him don't play in you have to play in that bowl game to feel like you're a part of that team or whatever.
And Fournette and McCaffrey both got drafted in the top 10. So
yeah, exactly. And if they would have blown out a knee in a bowl game, they're not getting drafted in the top 10. It's not happening. I mean, that makes a huge difference. And it's hard. I probably won't ever be in that position to talk to a college kid to tell him whether or not he should stay or not. But if I had to, I'm telling him do what's for your own best interest. That's just my personal opinion about it.
Well, and that's, like the window of opportunity is so small for some of these, not for some of them, for all of the guys. The NFL is such a limited deal. Even if you make it and you make it for what's considered a really long time, and the money sounds so great, and it is great, but it's not going to be something that's going to last forever. And when we recruit these guys, we talk to them about recruiting them and helping them reach their goals is part of our goal. And if part of our goal is truly to help them reach their goals, then when it comes to the times where the real decisions have to be made as a coach and as a man of, a man in good standing, you have to consider what is really best for the kid, and if what is best for him. And because some of these guys, they're not always right. Some of these guys, they may need to play in this bowl game to increase their stock. Maybe they're a guy that could have a great bowl game and increase what their draft status or their, being picked up as a free agent. But for other ones, maybe it's not what's best for their future and for that opportunity for them. And I think if you just think about what's really best for that individual kid, and I think the players are the same way. If they really think that, hey, man, this guy's doing this because of the opportunity he has, I think they're cool with it. They may not want you leading the pregame speech, but they're probably cool with the decision that you're making.
I think you really have to you have to be getting the advice from the right people.
That's exactly right. And that's the same way
there's tons of bad advice out there. And you got to be listening to the right people to make that decision. But
that's right.
Most of the kids that have done it so far are making pretty well-informed decisions.
Yeah, I think.
And as long as it's a well-informed decision, then I think that goes a long way to going it over with your teammates and with your team, as long as it's a well-informed decision. But, we see all the time with NBA draft picks, for example, guys leaving early for the NBA, they're just getting bad advice. Somebody's out there lying to these kids, telling them they're going to be first-round draft picks and so on, and you're costing yourself, an opportunity in college or whatever. And same thing with these guys, bowl games. If these kids are getting sound advice and they know where they stand in the draft, then it's a good decision. But you got to make sure you're listening to the right people at the same time.
Let me throw this quote out there and just tell me what you think. Wide receiver Erman Lane for Florida State is one of the four sitting out. In November, this is a quote that he said, "I just want to leave a legacy so when I come back, they'll have something positive to say about me and nothing negative. I just want to be a team player. It's never about me. It's always about the team and how we compete and how we come together." And now he's sitting out of their bowl game 1 month later.
Well, if he cuts a nice fat check in a
he'll be welcome back.
He'll be welcome back. They'll have a little halftime ceremony welcoming back to campus. No, it's hard because especially that with season still to play, it's hard to not be all in and so on. But I think you're going to continue. Again, this year there's more kids than last year. I think you're going to continue to see.
I think it's becoming more accepted, and that's what scares me is that it becomes a
watered down bowl season.
Yeah,
and it might, and
that's frustrating. That's from a fan perspective, and I understand there's a human element, and
100%. I mean, you want to see the best team on the field, and if the best players aren't playing, and maybe that's one thing the NCAA has to start to consider too is, if it does start to affect ratings and so on. Again, I could care less because they're $1 billion entity. But, if in the future, it does start to affect bowl games and so on, affects ticket sales or whatever, then maybe the NCAA says, hey, if you're healthy, you got to play. Sorry. I mean, I don't know how they enforce that. But, they can penalize the schools or whatever. But, it's one of those things that it's only going to get bigger. And, again, at some point, it's going to start affecting kids that are getting bad advice. At some point, you're going to get kids sitting that are 6th, 7th round draft picks.
Well, ask Andy Dalton how important a good bowl game is.
Yeah, and it can, like Coach Polley said, it can make a big difference. Like it's really your last chance to showcase, and we're going to talk about these bowl games here in a second. There's a lot of players in these bowl games that this is their last opportunity to show out on a big stage in front of the nation. I mean, you're playing one bowl game at a time, so you're the only game going at that time. And if you go out and have a huge bowl game, that can make a big difference in your draft stock.
That's the last thing they
remember. Yeah. It's the last film that all these NFL teams are going to watch, and it really does make a difference. And it's the peak of competition, as it may seem. It's probably the best competition they're going to have all season. So it really shows the NFL how you compete in the highest stage that you can have during college season. So there's both sides of the argument, and it's tough, and I don't think it's going to get any better. I think they're going to see more and more kids sitting out, and at some point it may start to hurt the product on the field, and that's when you may see the NCAA step in, or maybe the NFL says, "Hey, no, we want you guys to play in bowl games. We don't want you sitting out for our sake." But where it goes from here, I guess we'll see down the road.
Like you guys mentioned, we have a lot of bowl games to get through here. We're joined by Middle Tennessee State Assistant Coach Mike Polly, and he's going to join in with us here on the Bowl Picks. And as I mentioned before, the officer currently has a 2-game lead in the standings as we get into this week's picks. 2 over Keith, 3 over myself, so we have some making up to do. We'll start it off with the Walk-Ons Independence Bowl, Southern Miss taking on Florida State.
I got Southern Miss. They're a big underdog. 14 points they're getting, but I just think there's too many distractions for Florida State. They got too many kids sitting out. The coaching change. I just don't see Florida State coming out ready to play, and Southern Miss.
I agree with all the distractions and everything, but I think at the end of the day, I think they're still just too talented and athletic. I
don't trust the 6-6 Florida State team that squeaked into the bowl game. And now they're missing 4 of their better players, and I hope they lose. But they
started 2-5, and now they're 6-6. So they figured something out at some point.
Well, yeah, but Miami and Ohio did that. They started 1-5 last year and
started 0-6,
0-6,
and went to a bowl game
down the stretch. And not saying that can't happen, but when you're Florida State, and you play scrubs down the stretch, it helps too. But I more than anything, I just want them to lose. But I think 4 players sitting out does make a difference. I think Southern Miss has a good opportunity to win. They're a big underdog, but I got to make up ground on the officer somewhere.
You do.
That's right.
Coach Polly, you going to stick with your group of 5?
Yeah, I'm going to go Conference USA, and I'm going to go with Southern Miss. To me, when you look at bowl games, especially ones that may not be, the New Year's Six and the things that, the ones for the playoff and like that, it's oftentimes the teams that's most excited to be there that wins the bowl game. The kids that are, the bowl game's a different deal. You go for a long time. You're on the site for 4 or 5, maybe even 6 days before you play, and so you have practices at that bowl site and things like that. And so oftentimes it's the team that's the most excited, and it's the kids that are the most focused. And I would think that Southern Miss is extremely excited and extremely focused to play. And so I'm going to roll with Conference USA, and I'm going to go Southern Miss.
All right.
There's Keith Nair, the hashtag beer opening idiot. I have Florida State in this one. I think just too much talent, even with the players sitting out. I got Florida State in that one as well. I hate the fact that I'm agreeing with the officer.
You're not going to gain any ground.
I know, right? The New Era Pinstripe Bowl, Boston College versus Iowa.
I got Iowa. I think Iowa can control the ball as long as they can hang on the rock and rush football. I think they're the winner in that one.
I'm with you too. I got Iowa.
Well, I guess you guys have more opportunity. I got Boston College. I think they're white hot right now. They've won 5 of their last 6. I don't know which Iowa team is going to show up. They've been inconsistent this year. Are you going to get the team that blew out Ohio State and lost on the last play to Penn State, or are you going to get the team that got blown out by Wisconsin and lost to Purdue? I don't know. And with that inconsistency, I'm going with Boston College.
Coach?
Ooh, this is a tough one because, I don't do the homework that you guys do. You guys know so much more about this. And, I can tell you, or at least I'd like to think I can tell you everything there is to know about the 13 teams we played, but I don't know too much about either of these guys. So I'm going to go I'm just going to go Iowa. I don't know. I can kind of feel it. It's like when
you like the big boys. You're an O-line guy. You like the big boys. They got some cornbread boys over there.
So I hear they can run the football, and usually the team that runs the ball well ends up winning the game. Yeah. So if I had to throw my chips in, I'll go Iowa.
So you fit in well here with us. It's all right. The Foster Farms Bowl, Arizona versus Purdue.
I got Arizona. I think Tate's just too good of an athlete. Purdue is. Yeah. To be honest with you, I didn't know Purdue was bowl eligible. That's how much I pay attention.
Jeff Brom's done a heck of a job.
Yeah, 100%. Jeff Brom's done a great job at Purdue.
I mean, they barely squeaked in for bowl eligibility.
Yeah, but
they got compared to where they were.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I have zona that. I think Khalil Tate's just
Khalil Tate's just too good of an athlete. I just don't think Purdue didn't see anything like that during the season. I don't think they can handle it.
I can't wait to watch the game because it's my last chance to see Khalil Tate this year. He leads the country with 10.2 yards per carry. But in their last 2 games, he's had 22 carries for 60 yards, and both were losses.
Yeah.
So I don't know if teams are catching up with them. And then on top of that, Arizona has the 109th ranked defense. So I'm going with Purdue.
So I'm going with the officer. I'm going Purdue.
We got a chance to make us from
we
down
do.
here.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
I think too. I've had the the luxury of playing against Jeff Brown a few times, when he was at Western Kentucky. Mm-hmm. So there'll be a lot of big balls, a lot of balls down the field. He does a great job.
You didn't play against Brian Brown, did you? Was that?
I never.
That was the next year, right?
That's right.
That was the following year.
But there'll be some trick plays, and he'll dial them up down the field a few times. And, I'm gonna go Purdue.
Well, like we saw the Duke Northern Illinois game. It was Northern Illinois try to fake punt from their own end zones. Like it's the bowl game. Who cares?
Have their punter throw a go round on 4th and 18.
Yeah.
Did you any plays like that worked in your bowl game just in case?
I mean, we definitely had some tricks and some fakes. I've actually been that guy who's faked a punt out of his own end zone. When I was at Murray State, we ran a reverse. Nobody was expecting it, obviously, but we ran a little reverse pitch, and as the reverse came around, our guy was basically on our own goal line as he came around, and he went for like 17 yards or so.
That's awesome.
Nice.
That's pretty good.
It's all coaching.
It's all coaching. And he could really run. That helped too.
Yeah, and you look like a genius at that point.
That's right.
The Texas Bowl. Texas takes on Missouri.
It's a home game for Texas. I got Missouri though. I don't think too many guys sitting out for Texas. I think it just Missouri's got an opportunity to win, even though it's at home.
I have Missouri too, and because their offense has been on fire the last 2 months of the season, they're hanging 50 and 60 points, steaming on everyone. And Texas's defense, with some guys sitting out as well, Texas's defense has been, I don't think, quite what Tom Herman thought it would be this season. So I have Missouri going down to Texas and winning that game.
We making up another one here, officer?
We are.
Oh man,
we are. Missouri's offense has been on fire. I agree, but look at who they played. Idaho, UConn, and the only 4 SEC teams to finish under 500. So if you look at it a little further beyond face value, I'm not sold on Missouri. And again, this is more like the Florida State pick here, where I'm just, even with the guys sitting out, I think Texas is just flat out the better team. So,
Coach?
Well, the thing about Missouri is they're down a few coaches. They had their offensive coordinator left and went to Central Florida. Their offensive line coach left and went with them, and some things like that. But I do have a good friend that coaches at Missouri still, so I'm going Missouri just for him. There you go.
Well, it worked for the officer.
Yeah,
Tennessee.
I hope you're right again.
I hope you're wrong this time.
And 2 seasons ago, we beat Missouri, so technically, if Missouri wins, we can say we beat Texas.
Yes,
beat the team.
There you go.
Yeah, so you beat the team that beat the possible champs in Clemson this year.
Yeah, it all comes full circle.
You're gonna get a bunch of rings made up.
I guess we can say we beat Texas and Clemson.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Bragging rights for days.
The Thursday slate of games, the Military Bowl, Virginia playing Navy. Navy. This game's at Navy.
Yeah, I got Navy
as well.
I've played Navy in a bowl. Navy.
Even with a month to prepare for that offense, I just Navy. The way they run it is just so.
How difficult is it to prepare for Navy?
Well, on offense, it's different. I didn't have that luxury, but
even so, you've seen you know the game plan.
Yeah, I mean it's tough. I thought actually when we played them, our defensive coordinator did a great job. I thought preparing for them. We didn't really pull our rope, on offensive. We didn't score many points, but I will say it's extremely tough playing Navy in the Armed Forces Bowl. I feel like the whole country was pulling against it.
100%.
Like if you don't have a rooting interest, you're cheering for the team that represents the Armed Forces.
Was it a little bit easier to potentially take a loss in that game, knowing you're playing against the Naval Academy?
It's never easy to take a loss, but
it can't sting as much.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Maybe it hurt a little bit less.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair.
It still didn't feel good, but yeah.
The Camping World Bowl, Virginia Tech versus Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State. Their offense is too well-rounded. Mason Rudolph's a pretty good quarterback. As much as I dislike Mike Gundy because he'll rewrite the record even if they lose.
He's still bitter.
You know about that.
Yeah, he rewrote the record when they lost to Central Michigan. So if they lose to Virginia Tech, he might rewrite it anyway, but I don't think they do. I think Oklahoma State's just too well-rounded on offense.
I agree. It's the number 3 offense versus the number 3 defense, but I just the eyeball test. I think Virginia Tech's overrated. I think Oklahoma wins.
I'm gonna go Virginia Tech.
Really?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Virginia Tech.
There you go.
So I think when it comes down to it, oftentimes defense wins championships. Even being an offensive guy, I think being great on defense is the key to winning late. Winning in November and winning in December. So
yeah.
I'm going to go Virginia Tech.
All righty. Moving on to the
wait, time out.
I said Oklahoma State.
Oh, okay.
Oklahoma State. Mason Rudolph, that offense is just too good. The mullet wins another one. The Valero Alamo Bowl, Stanford versus TCU.
Stanford. Bryce Love gets it done.
If Bryce Love is healthy enough, I think they can get it done. I just think TCU's defense is that good that they have an opportunity to shut him down, especially if the high ankle sprain is still probably lingering, even if it's healthy. I think it's still probably lingering, and all it takes is one tough tackle, and he might be a little banged up. You know, he's been
banged up all year,
and we know he's gutsy. We know he's going to play through it. We know unless he has to come off the field, he's going to be on the field. I just think that their defense is really that stout that if they can negate Bryce Love's effectiveness, then they'll win the game.
A game being played down in the Alamo Dome in San Antonio too. So I have TCU. I think Kenny Hill and that defense is a little too much for Stanford.
Yeah, I'm going TCU. You know, I'll be honest. I don't know enough about Stanford. You know, oftentimes they play the late games.
The midnight
We've already
game,
played,
right.
and I'm half asleep, ready to get ready for the next morning. So I don't get to see them play a lot. But,
You've moved on to WWE. Moving on, the final game for the Thursday slate this week, the San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl. Washington State taking on Michigan State. Keith, you gonna make the pick because of the Coach Lee?
Hell yeah! You know darn well Washington State's win this game just so we get post-game quotes from Mike Leach. That's exactly what we want. You know what though? Honestly, I think that they're going to be an energized team. He got an extension. He's staying there in Washington State. I think they're coming off of a tough loss to Washington. I think that they're going to be motivated, ready to play. And again, I just like the internet gold that is Mike Leach.
Yeah, I agree. I think that offense gets it done, and they throw all over Michigan State. Washington State wins.
I got Sparty in the game. I think Washington State's offense has been a little too inconsistent for me the last month and a half of the season. Luke Falk's been kind of an up and down type of thing, and we saw him get throttled against Washington, who has a very good defense. Michigan State has a very good defense as well. I think Sparty gets it done, even though it is a long trip out to San Diego.
We'll see how many times Luke Falk turns it over. That seems to be the deciding factor.
If they can control the ball, as long as he doesn't throw interceptions. Michigan State has a pretty decent defense. If they can get to him and get
that's what I'm banking on there.
But don't you want Mike Leach?
You're going to get Mike Leach anyway.
Yeah, but his quotes are so much better when he wins.
I know there's a difference between happy Mike Leach and bummed Mike Leach. Yeah. You're going to get Mike Leach anyway.
Just looking forward to that press conference either today or tomorrow when they do their final press conference. I just want to see.
Yeah, and he talks about like taking his kids for driving lessons or something like that.
I can't wait. He'll talk about something random in San Diego about what happened. He saw a seal on the pier or something like that. It'll be great.
Coach, that's the guy to watch if you want to
go work for that guy.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Washington State too. If he can get his team ready as well as he gave marriage advice, I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yes,
that was great. Yes. That was pure gold.
Yes.
Did you and your fiance sit down and watch that?
Yeah, I did send it to her on Twitter, and she basically just sent back like some type of emoji face, that I won't really explain right now.
Since everybody else here is married, that is 100% accurate.
Yeah, man.
Just nod your head and say yes, whatever you want, honey.
But then that doesn't work either, because then all you're doing is just nodding and saying yes because you don't want to be involved.
Yeah,
it was the perfect explanation.
You can't win. It doesn't matter. You're not going to win.
It's a fine balance, and you're going to lose every time. Moving on to the Friday games, we'll get a coach's pick on this one since we already picked it last week with Quentin Wilson. The Music City Bowl, Kentucky against Northwestern. Keith succumbed to the pressure. Quentin Wilson, his guy, they picked Kentucky. The officer and I took Northwestern. Coach?
Oh, man, I'm going Kentucky.
Yeah.
From Kentucky, that's all. I'm going Kentucky.
Yeah.
All right.
Q, I still got you, buddy. I didn't change my pick.
The alumni picks the.
I know.
I
was the only one that picked the Chippewas. Now, rightfully so. We got a
yes. By the way, how'd that turn out for you? That nice 8 turnover performance on the blue turf. 8 turnovers.
How you gonna win with 8 turnovers? Everybody's like, oh, he had what's the quarterback? Can't think of my name. Suck right now.
Your quarterback?
No, Wyoming's quarterback. Why is my name?
Oh, Allen.
Yeah, Josh. Oh, Allen had a great game. He threw 15 passes and 5 of them, or 3 of them were touchdowns. Like, oh, what a great game. He threw for 112 yards and 3 TDs.
Coach Paul, didn't you say you were 1-0 against the MAC this year?
We were 1-0 against the MAC. We beat Bowling Green.
Oh, that wasn't too tough.
It's the MAC.
So. Hey, it still looks good.
It was what it was.
It still goes in the win.
Really, in the last 2 years, we're 2-0 because we played Bowling Green as well last year. But,
well, keep scheduling them. You get a guaranteed win every year.
We did have the misfortune, and we played a couple years ago. We played Western Michigan in the Bahamas Bowl as they were making their role for winning about 14 straight, and we kind of got to be the beginning of that. So.
But at least you got to go to the Bahamas.
We did. That was really cool.
That'd have been pretty good. Cool experience. The Belk Bowl, Wake Forest versus Texas A&M. I have Wake Forest on this one. Too much turnover at Texas A&M, and we've seen a lot of Kevin Sumlin teams when they're unmotivated how low they can play. And now Kevin Sumlin's gone, so he's just kind of leftovers with that team. I have Wake Forest.
Yeah, I got Wake Forest too. I just think too much with the coaching change and stuff. I don't think Texas A&M gives a crap.
No, they're not up for this.
No, Wake Forest, like Coach Foley said, the team that's more motivated to be there is going to be more excited, and Wake Forest is way more excited about being in a bowl game than Texas A&M is.
I don't think before the year A&M had aspirations of the Belk Bowl.
No, they had a lot higher aspirations.
Plus, I think that game's in Charlotte, North Carolina, too, so that's not too far from Wake Forest.
That's right. That's an easy trip.
Coach, you on board, Wake Forest?
I'm going Wake Forest again. I'm a homer. I know guys at Wake Forest, so I'm rolling with them, man. I hope they do well. It's hard for me to pull against guys I know.
Yeah, well, that's understandable. Hyundai Sun Bowl, NC State versus Arizona State.
I got NC State.
NC State. I'm going to submit it without reason.
Didn't
research that one very well.
I'm not arguing that one either.
I got tired last night.
I got NC State.
Coaching changes and Herm Edwards hasn't taken over.
Yeah, what do you make of that? What do you make of that situation in Arizona State? The way they're kind of setting up, have Herm Edwards be the coach, but kind of like the general manager. And they were going to have the coordinators kind of run things, but then the coordinators left.
Yeah, both coordinators. I don't know. I mean, all I know of Herm Edwards is what I see, on ESPN and stuff. So
it's just very odd, that whole situation.
He's a big personality. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he'll do a good job.
Probably helps in recruiting.
It definitely would help in recruiting because people know who he is. You know what I mean? That's a big part of it is just having the name and the recognition. But I'm sure he'll do a good job. I really don't know enough about it to make a real educated comment about it. But we talk about you put him in a kid's living room and have him sell a program. He's going to do it better than probably any other coach in the Pac-12. You sit him down in the living room, and he's going to be able to sell it to you. Yeah, I do think he would. I think he would do a great job. I really do. But there's also part of me that when it comes down to it, and I'm not saying that he won't be the best, but when it comes down to it, there is another element to recruiting besides, like I kind of talked about before, besides just selling it. Mm-hmm. And I think the guy that's going to get the best players is going to be the guy that can make the kids realize that, that there is a relationship and that, that they can really do and build for that kid what that kid really wants and help him achieve his goals. So, the flash will only last so long. And obviously just by his name, not because of anything he's necessarily done, he has the flash because everybody knows who he is with being on ESPN and stuff and being a great player himself. But I'm sure he'll do a great job.
So you have NC State or Arizona State?
I'm going NC State.
NC State. Okay, we're unanimous on that one. The Nova Home Loans Arizona Bowl, New Mexico State taking on Utah State.
I think this is a close game. It was really hard to pick. It almost came down to a coin toss for me. I got Utah State.
New Mexico State submitted without reason.
Yeah, I got New Mexico State. For anything else, number one, they've got a Kentucky guy as their coach. But number two, this is their first bowl game since 1960.
Motivation,
which they played against Utah State and lost, but I have New Mexico State now. But just for the feel good story, they haven't been to a bowl in 57 years, so good for them.
Oh, but so Utah State has the history.
Yeah, well, that's not my fault. You didn't look at it.
I'm like our picks are going to be drastically.
Yeah, this is definitely going to swing the top.
This is the moving week.
This is where we move.
This is like the Saturday at Augusta. This is moving day for us. The final game for Friday, December 29th, the Goodyear Cotton Bowl, and it should on paper be a doozy. USC taking on Ohio State. And Officer, I'll go ahead and put down the Buckeyes as your pick.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys know that. Ohio State, I just think they're too good. I think that obviously USC isn't able to stop anybody, and this is going to be the best defense that USC has played. In my opinion, I think that front seven disrupts Sam Darnold, and I think Ohio State wins by at least 14.
Jeez, blowout.
Yeah, that's how I.
Okay. All right, gentlemen.
I might have my fan glasses
scarlet and gray glasses.
Scarlet
and gray glasses on there.
No, I unfortunately, as much as I don't want to, I agree with the officer. I don't think USC has seen a defense like Ohio State's. I think it's too much for Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold struggled against better defenses in the past. I don't see USC. We talked about it when we were going into who was going to make the Final Four. I was making a pseudo argument for USC, knowing that they had no shot at getting in, but they had an argument if the TCU and I'm sorry, I forgot who and Ohio State won. They would have an argument to be that 4th team. And they're largely unimpressive. They obviously get the job done. They win games, but largely unimpressive. On paper, Ohio State's defense is just that much better than their offense, and Sam Darnold tends to make bad decisions. He's still a young kid. Like, that's one thing that people kind of forget about him. Although he might be a first pick of the NFL draft, he's still under 21 years old. He's still not a seasoned football player as far as games played, even in college, even at the Pac-12 level. It's just not the same. To go with the senior quarterback, and I think Ohio State's too much for him right now.
Coach?
I'm going Ohio State. Yeah, I really haven't had a chance to see either of them play a ton. But I did get to see Ohio State play Penn State on our bye this week or this year. So I had a chance to actually sit in my living room and watch a game.
That was a great game.
It was a great game. So I'm going to Ohio State. I think that Urban Meyer does a really good job in bowl games, and he's done a great job in playoff games and those type of situations. So I think they'll be ready to play. I think they'll get it.
I'm taking USC.
I knew you were going to do that,
and not just to be contrarian. I had it marked down before the game. It goes back to. We've talked about it in past episodes. I don't trust JT Barrett. I don't trust him.
You trust him more than Sam Darnold, though?
Yes. I trust Sam Darnold more than I do. And don't forget with USC, too, you have Ronald Jones in the backfield, who's more than capable of a rusher, probably the second best running back in the Pac-12 behind Bryce Love there as well. And so Ohio State, they are a big play offense when Barrett is on his game. But we've only seen a handful of times when JT Barrett has been on his game.
And I thought that as well. I understand JT Barrett's had his ups and downs, but I personally just think as a team overall, Ohio State's just that much better.
I think Ohio State is more talented. I can't trust Barrett enough to say that puts Ohio State over the top. Their defense is very good, but I think the balance between Darnold, who has gotten better as far as the turnovers go as the season's gone along, and Jones, the tailback there, I think USC can win that game. So we'll move on to the Saturday games of this week, the Tax Slayer Bowl. Louisville taking on Mississippi State, and I have Louisville in this one, and I think it is a rout. I think Lamar Jackson balls out in his college finale.
Yeah.
Mississippi State, the coaching staff changes there. Dan Mullen's left, gone to Florida. I think this is Louisville all day long.
Louisville all day, and we talked about it, leading into the Heisman Trophy, and we just mentioned it today. This is his last opportunity, Lamar Jackson, that is.
He's going to go nuts.
His last opportunity to impress, what he's going to do in the NFL, whether it's quarterback. There's already talk of him working out with wide receivers at the Combine. Because that may be a better fit for him in the NFL, just because he's a freak athlete. He's going to run possibly the fastest 40 of a quarterback in Combine history.
I wouldn't be shocked in this game if he throws for 300 and runs for 200.
Yeah, he's going to go out to impress. And again, with the coaching changes at Mississippi State, there's just kind of a fractured team right now. I think Lamar Jackson comes out and just makes it a runaway.
He's 16th in the country in passing and 11th in rushing. There's only 10 people, all running backs, that have outrushed him this year. Yes, I think, and no Dan Mullen. I think Louisville. I agree. Louisville wins in a rout.
Yeah, I'm going Louisville because that's coaching change, and I don't know. You guys did the research. I'm assuming Nick Fitzgerald is not back from Mississippi State.
I don't think it was fully determined last time I had checked.
If he's not back, they don't have their starting quarterback.
Right.
And that's I think that you also have a former Heisman Trophy winner in his last game, and Lamar Jackson. He's special. I'm going Louisville.
He's a heck of an athlete.
Yeah, he's special.
He really is. The AutoZone Liberty Bowl, Iowa State and Memphis. So, Coach, I'll go to you first. I think it's kind of a little more up your alley. Maybe a little more familiar with Memphis.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm gonna go Memphis, man. They have a really good team. I watched them play Central Florida in the AAC championship. I had a chance to.
That was a great ball game.
Great football game.
Memphis has done a great job. I'm going Memphis. I don't know a ton about Iowa State, but I'm going Memphis.
Well, so Memphis, they have an exciting offense that I think they can score on up there with anybody. I think they have the number 2 offense in the country. I think, but regardless, Iowa State, they've been a hell of a spoiler this year. They've shown they can beat some really good teams. So I'm going to take Iowa State.
This is a home game for Memphis, so I have Memphis the whole way. This is being played at where Memphis plays at the Liberty Bowl. So
yeah, that's true.
I have Memphis in this one. Mr. Adam Kieft?
I also have Memphis. I think they can put up points, in Iowa State, despite the 2 big wins, they're just inconsistent to me. And
they are.
I think that Memphis is going to put up a bunch of points, and that's the difference.
PlayStation Fiesta Bowl, Washington taking on Penn State.
I think Saquon Barkley comes out and shows why he should have had more Heisman consideration. And Trace McSorley has gotten better as the season has gone on. And it's good offense versus good defense. And typically I agree the defense wins championships. But in this case, I think Penn State wins.
I think Penn State wins as well. I think Saquon Barkley's last opportunity to impress in front of NFL scouts. I think that makes a difference in Washington. Maybe it's East Coast bias. Don't know enough about Washington, but what I have seen from them is largely unimpressive. I know how electrifying Saquon Barkley is, and I think that's the difference.
I'm going Penn State. I say Barkley has a non-offensive touchdown.
Okay, special teams. Well, you're a special teams guy.
I'm saying he has a kickoff return for a touchdown, maybe to start the game. I don't know.
Yeah, I've got Washington in this one because of their defense. I think Browning can make enough plays at the quarterback spot. Plus, looking at the numbers going into this game, Washington's starting tailback, whose name eludes me at the moment, and I apologize to him, actually has run for more yards than Saquon Barkley has this season. Barkley has disappeared a lot during games this season. And it kind of started with the Ohio State game. He had the return for a touchdown, which I'm sure had to make you happy there, Coach. But other than that, running the ball, he just wasn't really that effective. So I think Washington continues our trend, especially defensively, and gets it done in the Fiesta Bowl. Moving on to the Capital One Orange Bowl, Wisconsin makes the trip down to Miami to take on the Hurricanes in the Orange Bowl.
I'm wearing the turnover chain. I'm in. I'm sold.
You got the Canes
on Miami.
You got the Canes.
All in.
Stop it. They're limping into this
ball. We'll go. The turnover chain will be out. It'll be passed around. Miami runs away with it in a home game. I don't think it's even close.
Wisconsin doesn't turn the ball over. That's one thing that they don't do. Wisconsin protects the football.
That's exactly what I got written down here. Whiskey protects the ball and
As much as Drew,
there's never been a chain on the line though.
It didn't. How many times they come out against Clemson?
Would that
One,
not
maybe? I know they're not. I'm just saying that Clemson's a team that protects the football and drug them, and I think Wisconsin protects the football. They're not going to put the ball on the ground. They're not going to throw interceptions. I just don't. Miami was impressive, and I was sold on them going late into the season. The pick game surprised me. I wouldn't have picked them to lose.
I think Miami,
but I knew they were getting blown out by Clemson.
Yeah, and their freshman quarterback, I think, commits more turnovers than anybody on Wisconsin's offense.
I trust Rozier less than I trust JT Barrett at the quarterback spot, which is why I think Wisconsin wins. But Wisconsin's offense, we saw it in the Big Ten title game against Ohio State, can struggle mightily at times. But they
have to run the ball. They can't run the football.
But their defense is so good. And with the struggles Rozier has, sorry, Coach. I think we're all on board with Wisconsin here, the three of us. So
I'll send you a note.
We'll keep it in mind.
Yeah, send a tweet if you don't like the picks there too. At Coach Mike Polly.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
On Twitter. Yeah,
I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, we'll keep up with that.
You'll get a wrestling meme in return.
Yeah.
With a reply from his fiance. What the hell's this? The New Year's Day, let's move on to those. We've got 5 games on New Year's Day. It begins with the Outback Bowl, Michigan versus South Carolina. I have South Carolina in this one because Michigan cannot score.
No. O'Corn is the predicted starting quarterback for that game.
Does it matter?
2 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. I've said it all season. I'll repeat it again. Michigan is largely overrated, chronically overrated. They cannot score on offense. I don't care that their defense is good. They average just over 250 yards of total offense. How are you going to score any points? So bad.
So Michigan's defense is really good. I think we all agree on that. And I agree that their offense isn't good and they don't score a lot of points. South Carolina has the 98th ranked offense. They don't score either. And against a great defense, I think Michigan wins this.
I'm going to the most excited team to be there. I feel like Michigan had a lot of expectations that have kind of tapered off through the course of the season. I don't think that, I think they saw themselves, before the season started in the playoff. I don't know that South Carolina necessarily, they're kind of going through the process of trying to get to that point. I think their kids will be really excited, fired up to be there. I'm going to go South Carolina.
Yeah, South Carolina, a lot of people thought they'd finish in the basement of the SEC East this year.
Yeah, they were predicted to win 4 games. They doubled that win total. And Michigan was a potential playoff team, which I don't think anybody in this room thought, but people said, the Savior's back. He's working on his 3rd season or whatever. Here they come. They got everybody with all the pieces they want in place and so on. No, their offense is still garbage. They still can't figure out – they can't find anybody to put under center. I don't trust them. I just don't think – their fan base, they're going to have more than half the stadium is going to be their fans, but I don't think it makes a difference. I think they take the long flight back to Michigan or whatever nearest Walmart they live next to, and they'll go home crying.
Jeez. Well, also, this game harkens back to the last time these two played in the Outback Bowl, and the Jadeveon Clowney literally knocking a dude's helmet off in the backfield.
Well, he's not playing.
He's not.
As much as their defense is still pretty solid,
not.
Jadeveon Clowney is no longer there.
That's the clip everyone talks about, though, in that game. Coming up next now, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. I think this may be the most exciting game of the bowl slate we have this week. Central Florida taking on Auburn. Scott Frost staying on board.
You like points? Watch this one.
Yes, if you do like points, a coach or an offensive guy, I'm sure you'll be checking out this one as well.
I think this one will be exciting. I'm going to go Central Florida, though. I'm going to go with the group of 5. I think it is tough with the coaching change. And, even Coach Frost coming back and leading the team. I think it's different, obviously. There's a lot of transition there, a lot of unknown, but I'm just gonna. I feel like Central Florida has been really good all year. Not that Auburn hasn't, but I just feel like this will kind of their kids are ready to kind of cap their season. You know what I mean? Like this is the statement to say that they are just like everybody else in these bowl games at the end of the year,
and to send Coach Frost off,
to send him off, and to send themselves off. You know what I mean? It's their team. It's never the coach's team. The coaches come and go and all that, but the kids, man, that's what they always remember. Is where they played. So I think they'll be ready to roll, and I think it'll be a good one. But I'm gonna go with Central Florida.
I want Central Florida to win, 100%. I want 13-0. I want them to be undefeated. I just don't see it happening. I think Auburn, again, it's a motivation thing. Central Florida is going to be excited as hell to be there, absolutely 100%. But I think Auburn is also very motivated in this game because they're not that Final Four coming off the loss of Georgia. I think they're going to come in ready to play as well. And I just think Auburn's going to be a little bit too much for them to handle. Just Central Florida, they can put up points with anybody. I just don't know that
they can give up points with anybody.
I just don't see that their defense can stop Auburn at all. So all it takes is a turnover for USC or UCF, and that makes a difference. If Auburn can get a couple turnovers from them, I think Auburn wins it.
I'm with Adam on this one. I want to see Central Florida win. I respect the hell out of the fact that Scott Frost stayed.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. I wish more coaches would do that.
Yeah.
That being said, and like to go winless 2 years ago.
Yes.
To go go undefeated this year, I want that.
The country should want
that. But since we're competing
exactly.
here, I have to take all.
Well, that's the great thing about me. I'm not competing.
I tried too much of the pick it with my feelings thing, and it's hurt me. So I'm down. I got to go with who I think is actually going to win the game. 100%. I want UCF to win. I think the country, unless you're an Auburn fan, you want UCF to win. I just don't see it.
I have Auburn as well in that one. The Citrus Bowl, Notre Dame takes on LSU. I have Notre Dame in this one. I don't trust LSU to be able to score the ball.
No, I think Notre Dame's a better football team. As much as I would love to see Brian Kelly lose. As much
You're not bitter at all.
As much as I would love to see Brian Kelly red face on the sideline. Do
you ever get that heated on the sideline as Brian Kelly does, our coach?
I get heated at times, yes. I don't want to compare it to anybody else, but there's times where I have to look it back at myself and say, why did I do that?
Do you get the red face too?
Oh, I get the red face.
Oh man,
I don't know if it's just
I can't wait till you're head coach now.
I have a problem with I tense up. Bad, so then later in the day, I'll be sitting down or something. I'll start twitching, or I'll be sore.
Feel like you had a workout,
like sore in my back the next morning from something.
Working on the traps.
So yeah, I do have that problem at times.
Well, so LSU's won 6 of their last 7. I think Notre Dame limped in, losing 2 of the last 3. I got LSU in this one.
I think LSU's the hotter team right now. I'm going with LSU.
I said they still can't get over losing to Troy. Whatever.
Neil Brown's a heck of a coach down there.
100%. But what team shows up? I just, again, we're picking for something. And I think Notre Dame's a better football team. I would love to see, again, I'd love to see Brian Kelly lose, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Again, not bitter at all.
Not bitter. Not bitter.
Moving on now to the college football playoff semifinals, and we'll get to the team that Middle Tennessee beat that team here in just a moment. So Middle Tennessee can claim a pseudo-national title possibly. Well, we'll start with the Rose Bowl. Number 3, Georgia, taking on number 2, Oklahoma. And this should be a dandy just because of the contrasting styles. Oklahoma puts up points seemingly at will, but Georgia's defense has been unreal this season under Kirby Smart.
Well, I think the Georgia's got that. They've kind of almost one of those old school teams this year in that they play good defense. I think they can contain somewhat Baker Mayfield, and I think they can keep the ball away from him by running it, and I think Georgia wins. Yeah,
I think that's the big thing for Georgia. Nick Chubb and Sony Michel have to control the clock.
Ball control offense.
I think they do. I think they get it done. I think I wouldn't be shocked in this game if Georgia has the ball for over 40 minutes because they like to play the ball control, and because Oklahoma is such a quick strike offense that you just wonder. I believe at the end of the game, Oklahoma's defense will tire, and that leaves gaps for Nick Chubb and Sony Michel. I have Georgia winning this game and moving on to the title game.
I'm Georgia all the way.
I think it stays close until, like you said, Georgia's offense wears them down. I think it's a close game through halftime, probably midway through the third quarter. I think Georgia's run game just takes over. As much as I do enjoy Baker Mayfield and I do enjoy his success, I think he's fun to watch. Georgia just keeps the ball away from him, and that's the way they win the game.
So I'm kind of surprised we're all unanimous on Georgia on that one.
I know.
Georgia's pretty good football.
I think Georgia's the best team in the country. Save the one loss at Auburn.
I think this is the best of the 2 semifinal matchups.
I think it's going to be a better game to watch.
Yes,
I think your national champ comes out of these 2.
With that, we move on to the All-State Sugar Bowl, Alabama versus Clemson, and I looked online and saw that the predictor thing that ESPN does gave Alabama a 60% chance to win this game.
Alabama's a 4.5-point favorite.
I don't buy it.
I don't either.
That offense from Alabama has been so wildly inconsistent. Yeah. Jalen Hurts, you don't know what you're going to get from him. It's one read to Calvin Ridley.
You do know what you're going to get from him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you don't know where the ball's going to go because I don't think he does half the time. The running game with Damian Harris and Bo Scarborough has been way too inconsistent for me. I think Clemson wins this, and I think they could win. I think this could be a rout. I think Clemson wins this by at least 2 touchdowns.
It can get away from them.
Clemson led the nation with 44 sacks. I think they have 4 future NFL players on their defensive line.
Yes.
I don't, like you said, trust Jalen Hurts. And even though Alabama has a great offensive line, I agree. I think Clemson wins this.
Well, we saw what happened when last time Alabama faced a really good front 7 on defense. And Auburn shut them down. I think that's the same thing you're going to see here. I think
Clemson's is better.
Yeah, they have a very, very good front 7. Their defensive line is phenomenal to get after the quarterback. And we all know that there's only one read on offense when they're throwing the ball. It's Ridley or go. So, I think they get to the quarterback. I just think that their front as good as Alabama's offensive line is, I think their front just overpowers Alabama. And I think Alabama, again, it can get away from them. I think Clemson can win this game by 2 touchdowns. I don't know if I see it that way, but I think everybody's got it wrong. I don't see Alabama being a 4.5-point favorite.
I don't either.
I just don't see it.
Coach,
I have a hard time backing Alabama into a corner.
Nick Saban's had a long time to prepare for this game.
For the last, however many years, they've been kind of the standard of college football. Yeah. So I think that they are.
There's 2 for 2.
I think they're exactly where they want to be.
They're been a different spot. They're
barely getting in, however you want to look at it. You know what I mean? With only 1 loss, not playing in the SEC championship, more time off. Maybe one of
their last game was against Mercer, so that's even another week they've had to.
And they've obviously Coach Saban has been phenomenal, and he's probably considered the greatest college football coach at least of our era.
You listen to the show.
Yeah.
He knows.
You listen to the show. That's what we agree that he's possibly the greatest college football coach.
We're obviously the only people that have said that, so he clearly listens.
And I just, I have a really hard time backing them into a corner and thinking that they have no shot. I know they're favored or whatever, but I think the consensus is just out there that Clemson's going to win this game and Clemson may win the national championship. And as much as I would love Clemson to win the title so that we could say that we really are – again, the pseudo-national champ. I don't know. Something in me just says that Alabama's going to find a way.
It's tough to pick against Saban when he has this much time to prepare.
Yeah,
but it's the same argument I made last year too, and it didn't work for him last year. So it's hard because I always thought you give Saban a month to prepare for anybody, and it changes everything.
Yeah.
But this didn't happen last season. I think Clemson's got it figured out when it comes to Alabama.
So with that said, Coach, since we have you on here this week, you have an all-ACC championship game then with Alabama against Georgia. Then okay, so if that happens, who wins?
I think Georgia does. As much as what I just said, maybe they go against that, I really feel that I think personally that Georgia is the best team in the country.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I've had occasion to watch them more than some other teams because, obviously with what we do, you don't really get a chance to watch other teams as much as you would like to at times. And but watching them in the SEC championship and all of a sudden in comes some third running back that nobody knows his name and he's rolling and you're like, golly, who's this guy that got in the stables? And I just think they're a really good football team. I think they're rolling. I think they're confident. I just think it's their year. So I'm going Georgia.
Georgia to win it all then from Coach Mike Polly. So with that said, that concludes our bowl picks here.
We're going to track his bowl picks and compare him to us.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not competing.
We'll go win percentage here, though.
The way that Griefer and I picked, you got a chance to win this thing just by picking it 1 week. Because Griefer and I picked against you pretty much the whole time, so you might run away with it.
One of us is going to do very well. Some other ones are going to do terrible.
I know you guys would be in better standing had you picked Middle Tennessee.
Right. So that's the difference right now. Picking against you and then picking for my Chippewas is the difference right now. So I'm blowing it right now.
Bitter party of one.
Yeah,
so, Coach, So, Coach, you're like I said, talking about before, you handle the special teams down at Middle Tennessee State there as we transition towards the end of the show here. What's your affinity level for kickers?
That's a great question.
There's a diplomatic answer. We don't want that one. Give us the real answer. You're a former offensive lineman.
Yeah, you got to love the kickers. You got to love everything about them. You got to love their the quirkiness and all the weird things they do. And the one thing, and I'm not trying to give you the PC answer, but the one thing that coaching the guys, you have to, you got to talk to them. You know what I mean? You can't just tell them over there in the corner. And the one thing that's hard for those guys, man, is like, as an offensive lineman, for example, if you miss your block, like you've got multiple plays after that to try to like fix yourself.
You can make up for it.
Yeah, as a kicker, you like trot out there, you miss the kick, you trot back, and everybody hates you. Like, you know what I mean? It's that simple.
Yes.
Or you trot out there and you snap the ball over the punter's head or whatever the case may be, and it's like, all right, well, you really got the next play. No, like you've probably already been cussed at and screamed at, and you're off the next guy's up before the next play even occurs. So.
Keith just dumped a beverage.
Hashtag
beer spilling idiot. So with that,
fired up about kickers again.
So he spilled a beverage on the floor. So Keith, I'm going to assume you don't hold the same affinity for kickers that Coach Polly does.
No, Coach Polly hates kickers. He just doesn't know it yet.
They are a rare breed. I'll give them that.
No, they're a different bird. Like kickers, there's a reason they get their own corner in the locker room. There's the reason they got all their pregame routines and socks and different crap that they do. And like he said, there's no bigger spotlight. You don't get a chance right away to make up for it. If you screw up on special teams, you might not get another opportunity in that game to make up for it.
But
so you're gonna be the center of attention for a while.
But with that screw up though, they get themselves in contention for the Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the Week.
They do, and bowl game kickers haven't been that great, but it hasn't cost anybody a game yet. Although Northern Illinois special teams didn't do a great job yesterday against Duke. That was kind of fun. Fake field goal, fake punt going nowhere on either of them. That was kind of fun to watch, but it didn't cost them a game because they weren't even in that one. But we're going back to the NFL this week. NFL, I don't know what these guys are doing. Like this is
we haven't had a lot of NFL guys.
I know, but this last week there was some bad ones. Like there was a lot of missed field goals this week, and Zane Gonzalez not one of them. Go figure.
That does surprise me.
I think he's still one of the lowest in the league as far as percentage, though. But we got a repeat appearance from Patrick Murray this week from the Buccaneers. He's coming back again, 51-yarder, not an easy field goal, but well within his career long. He ends up missing in the fourth quarter, wide right. They lose 19-22. They lose by 3. Kick is the difference in the game. Jameis Winston also makes a complete fool of himself in that game over a lost fumble.
That was like punch face heaven for you.
Yes,
that game.
Oh my God,
Carolina and Tampa.
I loved it. I retweeted the clip because it was amazing. Because Jameis Winston just making himself look like a bigger friggin' idiot. I can't stand looking at that guy's face. I just want to punch him so bad. So again, not eating a W. So they go home losers because Patrick Murray can't make one from well within his career long.
Coach, do you have the same affinity for Jameis Winston as Keith does?
I don't have any affinity for Jameis.
Sounds like he's not a fan. We'll just
That's an easy answer.
Again, he's got a career to look out for.
Right. We understand.
This side of the table not making any money off of this. He still has a career to worry about. So totally understand where you're coming from, Coach. But this week's winner, it's not the difference in the game, but it's because of how it happened. This week's winner, we're going to go with Cowboys kicker Dan Bailey.
Yeah.
This is 2 field goals down the stretch in the fourth quarter.
He's the most accurate kicker ever.
Most accurate kicker ever.
Yeah.
Most accurate kicker in the season this year. And he misses 2 field goals down the stretch. They end up losing by 9, but here's why this makes a difference, because they lose the ball twice without getting any points out of it because they had another opportunity with the ball. This isn't how it ends, but 2 out of 3 possessions down the stretch in the fourth quarter. He misses from 34.
Oh.
An NFL kicker missing from 34, which is extra point range. That's the new extra point now.
Yeah.
So he misses the new extra point, pushes it wide right. Then they back him up to 48. Two drives later, they're back from 48. He misses that one. So he misses.
And Dallas is eliminated.
And Dallas is now eliminated from the playoffs. Yeah. So they end up losing the game by 9, but they come away 2 drives in the fourth quarter. They come away with 0 points, and you give the ball back to the Seahawks on a short field because they had other possessions there in the fourth quarter. So those 2 really do make a difference. So you can't give the ball back to the Seahawks in the fourth quarter by missing field goals. You got to come away with points in that situation. And again, it's out of the most accurate kicker in the NFL, and he freaking blows it down the stretch. So for that reason, Dan Bailey costing yourself and the team a shot at the playoffs this year, missing from 34 and 48 both in the fourth quarter. You're this week's winner of the Fumblegate Fatty Kicker of the Week.
We'll send you a certificate.
Look for your certificate. There's the trophy.
We'll post a picture on the Twitter.
There's your trophy. You can
send that to the Cowboys.
You can make that your new profile. Hashtag new profile pic.
Sure.
Dan Bailey, you can put that for your hashtag new profile pic.
Okay, so before we move,
we need one person to do that once. That would be.
Oh man.
Coach,
we're gonna blow him up on Twitter.
When you've had a kicker miss a kick from like 34 yards, as Dan Bailey did, you've mentioned before how you get like the shakes and like the twitching on the sideline. How tough is that for you to not necessarily take that out on the kid?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's tough at times. You know what I mean? But, the biggest thing is you need him. You know what I mean? At some point, you're going to need that guy to win you a game. Yeah. And we had a few this year where we actually had a great kicker. He won us some games and had some huge kicks. But that's the hardest thing to do because, most of the time if they do miss one, it's not always at the end of the game. You got to get that guy off the field. And everybody else in the stadium and everybody else on that field is mad at him. You know what I mean? Because that's just the way it goes when you're a kicker. It's a tough life.
You're the one guy that's got to say,
you got to
hey.
step in and be like, dude, you're fine. Like,
they could be head cases.
That's right. But it's
all keep him out of his own.
I don't think they were born head cases. You know what I mean? It's a result of the business that they're in.
There's definitely a pressure to the job.
Yeah,
it's 100% pressure.
It's a tough business, man.
Yeah.
And even just like at practice, you know what I mean? The kickers kind of go over there and they work on their stuff and they do their thing. And then as you fly, they come running over, and then it's like PAT field goal, and like to start practice or to end it. And it's like, all right, if they make them all, like it's going to be a good day, and the head coach is in a good mood. And if they miss a couple, like here we go. You know what I mean? Like, and they know that too, so they're like, oh god.
And when you got guys like Adam here that like to point out that literally a trained monkey can kick a PAT.
Missing PATs.
I think you guys should do a challenge. Should do a podcast from a stadium.
Maybe we
let you kick some field goals.
What we should do is we should bring in all our
practice.
Fumblegate Fatty kickers of the week, and we should have a kickoff with all those guys.
Bring them all in.
See if Paulie Fricano wants to come down. We bring in Dan Bailey, Patrick Murray. See if they want to kick a few. Giorgio Tavecchio, if you're listening, you can come in too. Come on.
I think we'd have better luck just us doing it.
Yeah, it'd be more fun that way. But maybe we can get Paulie to come. There's not a lot to do in Ypsilanti. He can come down to Cincinnati. Come on, Paulie. Hey, what's the shortest field goal that has been missed under your tutelage as a special teams coach? The shortest one.
Oh, we missed a PAT.
Yeah. Oh. 18 yards? You missed one of those?
Yeah, we missed one versus Vanderbilt this year. It was really weird because nobody really realized we missed it because it looked like it was good. And then it was like they're coming up the sideline and everybody's kind of like, all right, good, yeah. And I'm like, guys, we missed. And our kicker, it was a great kicker. He was a senior this year, but it was just like that really just happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but we've had some big ones that have won us games, and we've had some that didn't go through. That obviously, at that point it looks like they cost you the game. But there's always, just like with anything, just like a guy shooting free throws. I mean, you can always go back to yeah, but if this would have happened or that would have happened, it's never solely.
What if? I get it. But when it's on the foot of the kicker, never trust a kicker.
Whether it be college or pro, it doesn't really seem to matter.
Never trust them.
As we pointed out before, if you miss kicks, Keith will find you. So with that, we've talked solely college football here until Mr. Adam Keefe awarded Dan Bailey the Kicker of the Week award this year. So we want to close the show here with a bit of the NFL. And Coach Polly, we kind of went over this with you before the show here. The officer has his weekly tirade, if you will, pointing out the misfortunes of the Cleveland Browns. Yeah. Which I'm sure you've been able to see some of the NFL and kind of the train wreck that's been this season at 0-15.
On my notes here, I'm going to have to scroll this week. It doesn't even fit on one screen here.
So boy.
We got that much this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sit back and enjoy, everyone. This is your weekly installment of
Cleveland.
Officer, the floor is yours.
All right, hats off, Cleveland. Against the Bears, the Browns had one of the most Cleveland plays I've ever seen. Rashad Higgins catches a pass and races towards the end zone. He jukes out literally 5 defenders in what's turning out to look like a really nice play. And then he fumbles at the 2-yard line into the end zone, gets recovered by Prince Amukamara, touchback, Bears ball. So that's just how we're kicking things off here. So now we're going to get to our first honorable mention.
As he scrolls down the screen.
Right. And I have more scrolling to do. Okay. Hugh Jackson got himself into quite the situation. Last year, he vowed that the Browns wouldn't go 1-15 again. And he said if they did, he would jump into Lake Erie. Now they're sitting at 0-15. And he's at quite the conundrum because one of a few things can happen, and he looks like a dick either way. They can win, and he has to jump in Lake Erie because they would finish 1-15. Or they can win, and he backs out on his word. Or they can lose, and he has the infamy of being of only the second ever 0-16 season. So I don't know where I'd rather be.
Did he say that they wouldn't be 1-15 again? It would be better than.
He just said they wouldn't be 1-15.
So 0-16 doesn't qualify. So he doesn't have to jump in if they're 0-16, right?
But they're 0-16. So that's where do you?
Well, he doesn't have to jump into Lake Erie.
But they're playing.
God knows what you come out of Lake Erie with. You could end up with extra toes by the time you're done with that.
Then don't say you're going to jump in the lake
if you finish. He had confidence in his team. Didn't John Kitna one time say they were going to go 16-0 the year after they went 0-16? Yeah. So. It's not the boldest prediction ever made.
I don't think he has to worry about it. They're playing against a pretty good Pittsburgh team that has something to play for.
Yeah, probably 0-16 on the horizon. So, he spares himself Lake Erie at least.
Right. Okay, so next honorable mention. The Cleveland Browns have become the first team in NFL history with multiple 15-loss seasons. So think about that. In the history of the NFL, no team has lost 15 games in a season more than once. The Browns have now done that in back-to-back seasons.
That's man,
right. And
you see, Coach, I can see over there you were chomping at the bit to say something, but you've got the coach hat on. You're trying to be PC about it.
And for the most Cleveland incident this week, congratulations, Cleveland! You're officially on the clock. Yes, the Browns have secured the first overall pick in the draft. And with that, there have actually been reports that Josh Rosen of UCLA may decide to stay another year if Cleveland looks to target him with the first pick. Josh, let me give you some advice, buddy. The Browns may very well hold the top pick in next year's draft. Just get it over with. Go out there and at least get paid instead of having to wait another year. Honestly, the best thing that could happen to this kid is that he does go back to UCLA and he suffers an injury late in the season that affects his draft stock.
Drops him to like 15
and gets drafted by any of the other 31 teams, and then he has a chance to save his career. People love to claim that the NFL favors the Patriots.
They do.
But everyone forgets the fact that the NFL willingly allows the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Bengals to have 2 extra bye weeks each season.
When they play Cleveland.
Yes.
That's not fair. and since the Patriots and Browns will never be crossover games,
right?
Because they're never going to finish at the same place in the division.
Never.
Coach, what are your thoughts on Josh Rosen basically saying, I'll go back to school if Cleveland decides to draft me?
Oh, I don't know. I really don't know enough about it. But I mean, if you have a chance to play in the NFL and be the number 1 overall pick, how do you not know?
Not too many people get to do that.
Yeah, I don't know.
To live in infamy
It's been
in the
done,
city
though.
of Cleveland.
John Elway did it. Eli Manning did it. So
And it worked out the same way for them. But I'm just saying, like you said, chances are you're going to be a Cleveland Brown, whether it's this year or next year. You're probably going to be a Cleveland Brown. So, if you're the number one pick, you're going to Cleveland.
Right now, they have the 1st and the 4th pick in the draft because they got Houston's pick from last year before they decided not to draft Deshaun Watson.
You got double the chance of ending up in Cleveland
right
now. If you're coming out and you're like, oh, I'm not the number one pick, you may very well be the 4th pick. So.
Which is even worse because then you're stuck in Cleveland for less money.
Yeah, you don't even get as much money.
Does anyone give Cleveland even a chance this week in Pittsburgh?
No,
because they're tied with.
I know the stakes.
They both play at 1:00.
I know the stakes.
The game makes a difference.
Right.
If it didn't make a difference for Pittsburgh and everybody was sitting, maybe, but it makes a difference. And
so no,
it's not even no. It's
no chance, Coach.
Sorry, Cleveland fans.
As much as I, am not a fan of Pittsburgh,
this is the first time, and so because of this podcast and I can't wait for next week's episode if they go 0-16. This is the first time I can ever in my entire life remember rooting for Pittsburgh to win a game.
yeah, that's not really in my DNA.
Well, it just makes life more fun. If Cleveland's 0-16, it's even more fun.
Coach, we talked about if Cleveland goes 0-16, somebody's going to have a parade for them up in Cleveland, and we talked about the three of us trekking up there and partaking in the parade.
Poor Cleveland.
We'll send you some. We'll send you some
sound bites.
Yeah,
I just want sound bites from fans.
There should be some good ones up there.
Yeah,
that's about going to wrap it up here this week on Fumblegate. We want to thank Coach Mike Polly, assistant coach at Middle Tennessee State, for joining us here this week. I hope you had a great holiday with your fiance back in town, and we certainly wish you the best going forward at Middle Tennessee. Your Twitter handle?
At Coach Mike Polly.
See, that's pretty simple.
Heading back on the road here when you're done? You got to go back out recruiting?
No, not yet. We got a little dead period right now, so we got a little downtime, and our convention's coming up, and it's so I'll be going to that and stuff, and then we get back on the road and try to finish up the signing class. So.
I'll pick you guys in your bowl game next season.
Yeah, please.
No kidding, right?
Yeah. Follow the rest of us on the show at Fumblegate, #Fumblegate, FumblegatePodcast@gmail.com. Gentlemen, your Twitters.
FGP Cop.
At Fumblegate Fatty, #beer opening idiot.
Or beer spilling idiot for today. We thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you all have a very safe and happy new year, and we will see you in 2018 on the Fumblegate podcast.
Cleveland.
And with that, I think we'll go ahead and shut the Facebook down as well. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see you next week here on Fumblegate. Once again, thanks to Coach Polly. We will see you next week on Fumblegate.